This is the live podcast with Manuel, living in full expression. Hey everyone, and welcome to the live podcast with me, your host Manuel. And today we're talking about something that I know is affecting every single one of us right now. You know that feeling when you post something and then, be honest, you check it 5 times later to see how many likes you've got, and then 10 minutes later, and then you're on a meeting or having dinner with a family and you're half present because part of your brain is wondering if that post is doing well. Yeah, we're going there today. So are you tired of feeling like your worth is just a number on a screen? Because here's what I've noticed. In 2026, we are not just using social media anymore. The algorithm is in fact using us. It's quietly dictating our self-perceptions, shaping how we feel about ourselves based on metrics that, let's be real, mean absolutely nothing to the grand scheme of our lives. But here's the thing, this episode isn't about telling you to quit social media. I'm not going to sit here and preach about deleting your apps and going off grid. As you know, that's not realistic, and honestly, you know that it's not the solution. What we're going to be doing today is something much more powerful. We're going to reclaim your self-worth from these endless validation loops. We're going to talk about how to cultivate an intrinsic sense of purpose that the internet and all its algorithms simply cannot touch. Because I want you to imagine this. What if you could wake up tomorrow feeling genuinely confident, knowing your value isn't dependent on a fluctuating followers count? What if your sense of worth came from within you, not from a notification? And that's what we're going to be building on today. So grab your cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. All right, let's start with the uncomfortable truth. We are all on what I call the validation treadmill, especially for those who are constantly on social media. And just like a real treadmill, you can run and run and run, but you never actually get anywhere. And here's how it works. You post something, maybe it's a photo, a thought, a win, you're celebrating, and immediately, and I mean immediately, your brain starts waiting for the first like, that first comment, that first share. And when it comes, man, you get a little hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical in your brain. Your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. But here's the thing about dopamine hits from social media. They are designed to fade fast, really, really fast. So 5 minutes later, you need another one and another one. And suddenly, you are not posting because you have something meaningful to share. You are posting because you need that validation fix. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't your fault. This is literally how these platforms are designed. I've talked about this in our previous episodes. There are entire teams of engineers and neuroscientists whose job is to figure out how to keep you scrolling, keep you posting, and keep you hooked. So let me give you some real numbers here, right? Study shows that the average person checks their phone 96 times a day, and that's once every 10 minutes during working hours. And each time you check, your brain is hoping for that dopamine hit. But here's where it gets really, really insidious. Over time, your brain starts to associate your self-worth with those metrics. Low engagement on a post, you start to feel like maybe you're not interesting. Maybe you're not valuable. Maybe you don't matter. High engagement, you feel amazing. You feel seen. You feel validated. You feel very important. And just like that, without even realizing it, you've outsourced your sense of self-worth to an algorithm that doesn't know you, doesn't even care about you, and is literally designed to keep you anxious enough to keep coming back. So I heard a story about a lady who was a very successful business owner, amazing mother, and a genuinely accomplished human being. She was having panic attack. And guess what? Why was this? Every morning, she would post motivational content to her Instagram. And every morning, she would spend the next 2 hours checking the engagement. If it did well, she felt capable and confident. If it underperformed, she would spiral into self-doubt about her entire business, her value as a coach, even her worth as a person. This woman was running a six-figure business. She had dozens of happy clients. She had transformed lives. But all of that felt less real to her than the number of likes on a post. That's the validation treadmill. You are running, but you're never getting anywhere except exhausted. So let's talk about what's actually happening when you look at social media. Because it's not a window into reality, it's a mirror, but it's a funhouse mirror. Everything's distorted, exaggerated, and designed to make you feel a certain way. In 2026, we are not just dealing with influencers anymore. We are dealing with AI-generated content, perfectly created lives, and highlight reels that are so polished they might as well be fictions. And let me also tell you, with the introduction of digital twins, you just see people pushing out content and polishing their lives and making it look as though your life don't matter anymore. And here's the narrative that gets reinforced every day. Your worth is measured by your productivity, your aesthetic, your achievement, your body, your style, your success, and all of it. Better look. You scroll and you see someone who just launched their third business, someone who traveled to Bali while working remotely, someone who's in perfect shape with a perfect relationship and perfect kids, someone who seemed to have it all figured out. And then your brain, your beautiful pattern-seeking brain, starts making comparisons. Why aren't I that successful? Why doesn't my life look like that? What's wrong with me? But here's what you're not seeing. You're not seeing the hours of anxiety behind that business launch. You're not seeing the loneliness in that perfect Bali photo. You're not seeing the arguments, the self-doubt, the therapy sessions, the breakdowns. You are just seeing a 30-second highlight from someone's entire existence, and you're comparing that to your full, messy, complicated reality. Let me be brutally honest with you. I've been guilty of this too myself. I've seen another coach who seemed to be crushing it, and for a split second, I'm thinking, am I doing enough? Should I be doing what I'm doing right now? And then I have to remind myself, I don't know their full story. I don't know what they are struggling with. I don't know what they've sacrificed to get there. And more importantly, their path isn't my path. The digital mirror shows you everyone's best moment and asks you to compare it to your average Tuesday life. That's not fair. That's really, really not fair. And that's not a measure of your worth. All right, so here's where we turn the corner, because understanding the problem is step one. But what we really need is a solution. And the solution starts with the truth. Authentic self-worth is an internal state, not an external achievement. I want you to listen to that again. That authentic self-worth is an internal state, not an external achievement. Your worth isn't something you earn. It's something you achieve. It's not something someone else grants you with a like or a comment or a promotion. Your worth is inherent. You have value simply because you exist. Full stop. Now I know that might sound like fluffy self-help talk, right? But stick with me because there's real power here. Here's what I mean when I said that. When you were born, you didn't have to do anything to be valuable. You didn't have to post anything, achieve anything, prove anything. You just were. And the people who loved you, they loved you for just existing, not for performing. And then somewhere along the way, we learned that we have to earn our worth. We have to prove we are valuable. We have to constantly demonstrate our usefulness, and then social media that amplify that belief to an insane degree. So here's the work. You need to reconnect with your core value, not the value you create for others, not the value you provide through your work. I mean your intrinsic value as a human being. Here's something I want you to try this week. It's uncomfortable, but it's very powerful. So every morning, before you check your phone, I want you to sit with yourself for 5 minutes. Just you, no distractions. And I want you to ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? What do I value when there's no audience? What brings joy to me when there is no one to impress? And I want you to write the answers down. Over time, you would start to notice something. The things that genuinely matter to you, the things that light you up from the inside, those things have nothing to do with likes, shares, or followers. Let me share a little story with you. Let me tell you about John. He was a content creator who had built decent following, about 50,000 people, but he was miserable. Every piece of content was crafted to go viral. Every post was calculated. And then his coach asked him, if you could create anything, anything, with no algorithm to please and no audience to perform for, what would you make? And you know what he said? He said, I would make art. I would paint. So his coach challenged him and said, then do it. For 30 days, create for yourself. No posting, no sharing, just create. And this man, who hadn't touched a paintbrush in years, started painting every morning, and something shifted. He started to remember who he was before the metrics. He started to feel valuable again, not because of what he produced for others, but because he was honoring what mattered to him. Now, he still creates content, but it comes from a completely different place. It's authentic, it's true to him, and ironically, his engagement has never been better because people can feel the difference. All right, so now we get tactical, because knowing all this is great. But if you don't change your actual behavior, nothing happens, nothing changes. And in 2026, we are not just dealing with regular algorithms anymore. We are dealing with AI-driven content that's specifically designed to trigger your comparison reflex, your FOMO, and that is the fear of missing out, your insecurities. And so you need digital boundaries that are AI resilient. And here's what I mean. First, you need to create your digital environment like your life depends on it, because it definitely does. Because honestly, your mental health does depend on it. So this is going to be crazy. It might sound so harsh, but this is what you need to do here. Unfollow anyone who makes you feel less than. I don't care if they're an industry leader. I don't care if everyone else follows them. If looking at their content makes you feel inadequate, simply click that button to unfollow them. And then you follow people who inspire you without making you feel small. Follow people who share their struggles, not just their wins. Follow people who feel real. And here's the key. You can also use AI for your advantage, because most platforms now let you tell the algorithm that you don't want to see some certain posts. You decide what you want to see. So use that feature. Actively train your feed to show you content that nourishes you, not content that depletes you. Then secondly, set boundaries with notifications. So what you need to do here is to turn them off. And I'm serious, all of them. Your phone should not be allowed to interrupt your life every 5 minutes to tell you someone liked your post. That's giving the algorithm permission to control your attention, your mood, and your focus. Instead, this is what you need to do. Designate specific times to check your apps. Maybe it's 3 times a day, maybe it's once, but make it intentional, not reactive. I'd shared this also in our previous episode. Thirdly, create no phone zones in your bedroom, at the dinner table, during your first hour of the morning, during conversation with people you care about. These are sacred spaces where your worth is not measured by a screen. They are spaces where you practice being present, being human, being enough just as you are. And here's the hard truth. Here's what I need you to understand. The algorithm will always want more from you. More posts, more engagement, more of your attention. And if you're not intentional about protecting your mental space, the algorithm will absolutely colonize it. It will become the voice in your head that tells you you are not doing enough, you are not successful enough, you are not worthy enough. But when you set these boundaries, when you actively resist the algorithm's demand on your attention and self-worth, you take back your power. Okay, we are coming into the home stretch here. And this is the part that matters most, because everything we've talked about today in this episode, understanding the validation treadmill, deconstructing the digital mirror, reclaiming your intrinsic value, setting boundaries, all this is preparing you for this one thing, and that is living a life where your worth is defined by you, not by an algorithm. So let's get practical about what that actually looks like. First, you need to create your personal mission statement. This isn't about what you do at work. This isn't about your goal. This is about who you are at your core and what matters to you. And I'm going to give you mine. Here's my own statement. I exist to help people recognize their inherent worth and live in full expression of who they truly are. That's my mission statement. And that mission statement, it has nothing to do with how many podcast downloads I get. It has nothing to do with my social media following. It's about the impact I have on real people in real conversation. When I make decisions, I filter them through that mission. Does this align with helping people recognize their worth? Does this help them live in full expression? If yes, I move forward. If no, I pass. And suddenly the algorithm options doesn't matter anymore, because I'm not measuring my success by metrics. I'm measuring it by mission alignment. So it's your turn. What's your mission? Who are you when you strip away all the performance, all the facade, all the metrics, all the external validation? Who are you? Write it down, make it real. Let it be your compass. And then secondly, cultivate real world experiences. And here's a radical idea I want to give you. You do things that can't be posted. Have a conversation that's too deep and personal to share. Create something that's just for you. Have an experience that exists only in your memory, not on your feed. Because when your life is rich with real unposted experiences, you start to realize that the best moments aren't the ones that get the most like. They are the ones that fill you up from the inside. Thirdly, build real relationships. I mean the kind where you can show up messy, uncertain, struggling, and you are still loved. The kind where you don't have to perform or impress. The kind where your worth is assumed, not earned. Those relationships, they are the antidote to the algorithm, because they remind you that you matter, not for what you produce or achieve, but simply for who you are. And this is very important, because when you take off the algorithm validation, you need to replace it with something tangible, because nature don't like vacuum. So you need to replace it immediately with something. And that's why it's important you build a real human relationship. Fourthly, you need to define success on your own terms. Not society terms, not the algorithm terms, not the influencers terms. I mean your terms. What does success actually mean to you? What does happiness look like for you? What does a life well lived feel like for you? And here's the kicker. It probably doesn't look like the highlight reel you're comparing yourself to. Maybe success for you is having deep relationships. Maybe it's creative freedom. Maybe it's peace of mind. Maybe it's making a difference in one person's life at a time. Whatever it is, own it, claim it, and stop letting an algorithm tell you it's not enough. So, here we are. We've talked about a lot today. We've covered a lot today. And I know this isn't an easy work. Reclaiming your self-worth from that algorithm, it's countercultural. It's swimming against the current tide. It's choosing to opt out of a system that desperately wants you to stay plugged in. But here's what I know for sure. You are valuable. Not because of what you post, not because of how many people follow you, not because of what you achieve or produce or create. You are valuable because you are a human being with thoughts and feelings and experiences and wisdom and a perspective that no one else has. The algorithm can't measure that. It doesn't even try. So stop giving the power to it. So here's my challenge to you. And here's what I want you to do this week. Take 48-hour break from checking your metrics. Don't look at likes, comments, shares, accounts, nothing. And during these 48 hours, I want you to do something that reminds you of who you are apart from all of that. Paint, write, have a deep conversation, go for a walk in the nature, create something with no intention of sharing it, and notice how you feel. Notice if you feel lighter. Notice if you feel more present. Notice if you remember what it's like to be you without performing. Notice what it looks like to just be. Because that feeling, that's your authentic self-worth. That's the you that exists beyond the algorithm. That's you. That's who you're fighting to protect. And that person is worth protecting. All right, thank you for being here with me today on this podcast. If this podcast resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Not because I need the validation, but because I genuinely want to know how this is landing with you. Send me a message, share your experience, tell me about your 48 hours experiment. And remember, you can share this with people around you to also help them. And know this, you are enough. You've always been enough, and you will always be enough. The algorithm doesn't get to decide that for you. And until I come your way in our next episode, keep living in full expression.